we'll take a look at the iShare Core MSCI Emerging Market ETF, ticker symbols IEMG, offered by the iShare BlackRock. Oh, by the way, let me put a disclaimer first. Everything I said here does not constitute investment advice. Investment advice involving a risk, and do your own homework, do your own study before you invest. Alright, let's take a look at iShare IEMG Emerging ETF. Alright, this ETF is focused on the index composed large and mid and small cap equity from the emerging market. What's emerging market? For those developing country, not yet considered as a developed country, but they are working on their way to become a developed country. For example, China, South Korea. Although South Korea, in many investment firms, not even considered as emerging market, but if you consider South Korea as emerging market, they have been an emerging market for a very long time. For example, Japan is not an emerging market. Japan is developed market, so it's not going to be including Japan. Emerging market economy is seeking long-term return. So basically, this is an index-based, basically weight-based index fund, focus on the long-term return of the emerging market equity. It's a buy and hold strategy for the long run. All right. There are more risk, more volatility compared to a developed market such as S&P 500. We can talk about this later. Let's continue. Gross hypothetic $10,000 cents interception. So you put 10 grand in on 2012. You get about a 20 grand return. Double your money on the March 26th. Right? It's look like double your money, not too bad. It's not too bad, but if you think about it compared to S&P 500, it's still underperformed. Not only that, they have more volatility. That's the risk involved in investing in emerging market. They are more sensitive to political risk. They are more sensitive to economic risk, global economy, especially right now the oil. The problem with the oil and energy because the crisis in the Middle East. Okay, let's take a look here. Calendar year performance 2021's negative 0.64%. All right, negative 0.6%. That's bad. 2022 still negative, almost negative 20%. On 2022, so it's significantly underperformed compared to a developed market during the 2021 and 2022. But you have to consider overall the global equity is going down during the period. They just get a recover from the COVID, I think. And 2023, 11%, 2024, 6%, 2025, 32%. 2025 is pretty impressive, 32%. Equity growth within 1 year, 32%. That's impressive. That's nice. But this is just individual years, calendar years performance. You want to also take a look at the annualized performance, which consider average return of the number of the years. Look here, 10-year average return is about 8%, and 5 years 4%. And 3 years 16%. As you can see, the longer you hold, you have more stable return. If you hold for 10 years, 8% is pretty much the percentage of the 10-year average return of the US S&P 500 in the long run. That's a global profit growth 8% per year. That's on average for the US Fortune 500 company. So that's pretty much the same. So, but much more risky. Those companies in the developed market is a developing emerging market is more risky than the company in the developed market. But potentially they get more return, but there is no guarantee you get more return for that. Nothing is guaranteed in the investment world. You want to guarantee put money into a money market. You want to guarantee put into a CD, but it's still not guaranteed. Your money put into a CD or money market from bank account, checking account, they're gonna eat away by the inflation. Just take a look right now how much the gas price, right? The grocery price, right? It's gonna affect you. So nothing is without risk. Even putting the checking account, you still has exposed to the risk for the inflation. Okay, let's take a look. Top holding Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing. Oh, that's the company recently moving to the United States. I think it's taken over by the United States, and they also transfer all their technology to the US. And they're gonna build their factory in the US as well. The second one, Samsung Electronic. Well, that's the cell phone. That's the Android cell phone. I think the Apple is more popular in the United States, but in the Asia, especially Japan, China, South Korea, Samsung is very popular, and they build a good quality cell phone. And the next one, Tencent Holding, that's a Chinese company, I think. Alibaba Group Holding 2%. Chinese Construction Bank. See, there's a lot of Chinese company, social media company in there. There's a banking company, Chinese banking company in there. Okay, let's take a look at the geographic breakdown. China as an emerging market, the biggest emerging market in the world. They have been an emerging market for a long time, but still they continue growth in a very fast pace. The economy grows 8%, 10% per year, compared to the United States and the Euro is grows 2 or 3%. So I would be lucky if the Euro and the United States grow at 2 or 3% per year, the economy. So they are fast growing country like China in the emerging market. So that makes sense. Take over 23% investment. And Taiwan, China, also 22%. And as we mentioned about the semiconductor manufacturing is Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing is from Taiwan. So originally, South Korea, 15%. So these top three put together take over more than half of the emerging market. You have the rest of Brazil, South Africa, Mexico, Malaysia, Thailand. All right, other 8% says other. Don't know, maybe a little bit from the Eastern European country like Poland, Russia. Russia also considered as emerging market. But since the Ukraine war start 2022, the Russian economy, especially the equity, is not doing that well. Let's take a look at the sector they invested in. They are heavily focused on the information technology. So that makes sense because the emerging market has a young population. Lot of companies is focused on the technology development such as AI, social media, stuff like that. So robotic technology, stuff like that. So information technology is like a big area for the emerging economy. And come second is 20% for financial, consumer discretionary, because grow up larger growing of the middle class in the emerging markets such as China and South Korea. That makes sense. The consumer discretionary will increase. All right, and overall, the Morningstar give a 3-star rating. The Morningstar just give you they are not guaranteed. They give a 3-star. Does that mean good or bad? No, they are not guaranteed. They are just their estimate. You cannot make a decision based on the Morningstar rating. You have to do your own research. All right. Plus, they are all equity. There's no bond in there. The benchmark is emerging market investable market index, denominated in US dollars. So the investment is close following the benchmark. They always blend together, as you can see. That's good, which means you want to invest in index fund, the index fund is close follow to the benchmark. Should be reflected the investment return of the benchmark. Outstanding share, enough share, where they are trading, New York Stock Exchange. Expense ratio 0.09%, which means you invest $100, you only pay 9 cents for the expense, for the fee, for the management to help you invest the money. So that's pretty cheap. Most index fund has very low expense ratio because they are not too much like a buying and selling or particular research for the particular fund. This is a passive investing. You invest in index funds, that's a passive investing. It's not active investing. So the cost should be relatively low. So that doesn't make sense. 30 days yield, not too much. Well, why the reason only like 1.8% yield, 30 days yield? Most company in the emerging market, they don't pay dividend. They don't pay too much dividend. They focus on the reinvest the dividend into the company and keep growing. So they're growing much faster than the developing market company in theory. And because they use all the money they get to invest back into the company. But in the developing country, lot of company they want to pay out the dividend. For example, like the drug company, the pharmaceutical company, Johnson & Johnson, they are so huge, they are not growing anymore. So they pay out the dividend to keep their shareholder happy. That's the difference. PE ratio 16. Look like the PE ratio a little bit high, but that also makes sense because the developing market is also heavily focused on the growth stock instead of value stock. Okay, they try to outperform the market with growth. They focus on the growth. So most of the growth stock have relative high PE ratio compared to the value stock. And also it's very diversified. They have 2,659 stock holding in the index fund. Conclusion: the core MSCI emerging market ETF should be part of your portfolio, but should be a small portion of your portfolio. Maybe 10%, 20%, depending on your risk tolerance and depending on your investment horizon. If you have a young man, have 30 or 40 years, you can put more money into emerging market. But you are about to be retired. I don't think the emerging market will bring you any immediately benefits because you need money for the retirement. And you should focus more on the high dividend yield ETF if you are in a retirement or almost became in a retirement. Okay, this is overall review, a simple review for the iShare MSCI emerging market ETF, ticker symbol IEMG. You can buy from the iShare Black Rocket.